Hey everyone, it's Zahava. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at all of my April reads. I have been trying to film this video for a few days now, but it's just been kind of a crazy week. A lot of things have been happening that I wasn't prepared for. I was really tired, I wasn't really feeling like filming, and I don't know, the schedule just didn't line up in order for me to be able to sit down and really, hang out with you guys and let you guys know what is up and what is new with me and life and reading and all that jazz. So I'm glad to be able to sit down with you now. I think I should have a quiet moment. Wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of things. So, the car accident. I'm still using the loaner car. I do not have my old car back. I'm waiting to hear from the body shop. I don't know if I'm going to get my car back. So that's to bring you guys up to date with that incident. But I did hear from the insurance and they did find us to have 0% fault in that accident. So that is really, really good news. And yeah, I mean, tomorrow I'm sort of debating, there's another book sale on Montreal's South Shore that is going to be happening tomorrow, which is going to be the first weekend in May. And I'm thinking that I might want to go down there, but the problem is the Friday traffic coming from the South Shore back to where I am in Montreal, it's not going to be like the best thing. So I don't know if I'm going to sacrifice the book sale tomorrow, Friday, and try and go maybe like Saturday or Sunday when the risk being like more people and more children, or if I'm gonna go at noon when it opens tomorrow by myself and, brave the traffic at 2 p.m. because I expect to spend an hour or two there just browsing, seeing if there's anything to buy because it is for the local SPCA on the South Shore of Montreal. And they're going to be doing like a fundraiser, a used book sale fundraiser. So I would like to be able to attend that if that's possible. But I don't know if it's going to be possible because I get kind of like, you may not believe me, but I really don't like people. Like, I don't like to be out in a crowd and then have to drive home in traffic and suffer everybody else's driving and like everybody else's, it's like stressful for me. And there it is. I said it. It's on the internet forever. So yeah, I just kind of get like mild agoraphobia when there's too many people in my vicinity. So I don't know if it's like the best thing for me to be going to a book sale, but then, FOMO, like I don't want to miss out on something. So yeah, that's enough of a blah blah. I want to also give a big welcome to all of my new subscribers. I think you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for coming here and taking a chance on a very small channel. For all of my returning subs and all of my returning viewers, you already know you guys are awesome. I can't believe you keep coming back for this kind of poison time and time again. So super happy to have you here. Let's get into the April reads. As usual, I have a script, sort of, which I will loosely base this video on. And I think like rather than separating all of the reads into different types of media, because sometimes I'll do my audiobooks and sometimes I'll do the print books, etc. I think I'm just going to go kind of chronologically in order of what I started reading at the beginning of the month until however I end up at the end of the month, all right? So let's go through them. The first book I finished in April is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. This is the first of what is now a duology. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy. I already have the second copy. I already have the second installment, I should say, of this book, which is, I don't know what the name of the second one is, but I have it on my shelf in my office. It's just not a priority read for me because there's so many other things that I want to get to. And I don't know about you guys, but I find it's much easier to get to a standalone novel rather than continuing on with series, which is why I guess that there's so many people that do I need to finish series YouTube videos because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. You read one, and normally when authors were publishing books on a normal schedule before everybody became by and large over consumers and over hoarders of books, we would have to wait in excess of a year sometimes before the second installment of our story came to press. And now we don't have to do that. Now a lot of the things that we're reading are being pumped out super fast, and as a result, I don't know, I guess I get kind of scared of finishing a series. Like I don't want to get into it too quickly. And also with this one, this is kind of like an X-Men-ish type story. Not that it's comic book esque, but it's more about like children that have special abilities that get recruited that end up going to this school, which is kind of dark academia-esque, but they end up being the saviors, although it's not, I wouldn't say a YA novel, though it does concentrate mostly around a group of heroes that are children that have these magical abilities, but they also work with staff members. They're trying to fight evil and stop the world from being taken over by evil forces. And that's essentially what the story is about, and then you get to explore a little bit about their particular abilities and what that might help them to accomplish. That being said, it is a book that wraps up at the end. So what I prefer is a book that, let's say like John Gwynne's Bloodsworn Saga, where I've only read the first out of the 3 books, but I have all 3 of those books. The first book, which is Shadow of the Gods, it ends on a cliffhanger. The story is not completely told in the first book of the series, and you would have to read the second and third books to get the complete story. Whereas books like this are written to be complete stories in their first volume, and then subsequent volumes have like other stories or continuing stories that feature the same characters. Sort of. So it's not my favorite way to read a trilogy or a duology. I prefer when books are planned out over a series of 2 or more books, because then I don't know, it's like I feel like I want to go back to the series. When I get a complete story finished like this with the possibility of opening it up for a sequel, it's kind of less of a sell for me. It makes me feel like I could afford to wait on the next one, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I say makes sense to you guys. But it's like there's no urgency. There's no urgency to finish this story because it's not like I'm being left on a cliffhanger. The book itself came to a complete ending, which, you know, was okay. And I have to admit that I got a little ahead of myself when I bought the second book because I saw it at Book Outlet and I wanted to get it at a particular price point, which is why I sort of jumped the gun and bought the book. But honestly, like I could have not bought it and been fine. So I will read it, I just don't know when I'm gonna read it. So that's it for Ordinary Monsters. I can't remember what star rating I gave this, but if you guys wanna know, you could follow me on Goodreads. The link will be down below in the description. The next print book that I read, this was also a hardcover version, but I don't know if I'm gonna show it necessarily on screen. I'll kind of just angle it this way because it kind of tends to get a lot of glare. It's called Honey, and this is by Isabel Banta. Is it Isabel? Yeah, Isabel Banta. And this is good. This is about, it's a fictitious tale about a 90s pop star on the rise, and it's told in my least favorite format, which is first person, present tense. So I had a little bit of trouble getting into it, but once I was into it, it was really fine. I enjoyed it, like more than I thought I would, I guess. So it would be probably a 3.5, 4-star read for me. And I would suggest it. Like it's a good indication of what a pop star in the USA or potentially in a first world country, let's say, what a candidate to be a pop star might go through in order to achieve her dreams or to try to achieve her dreams, as the case may be, and what could happen. So it's like a coming of age story, deals with like identity, friendships, sexual awakening. So definitely not a book for children. I would not suggest this to anyone under the age of 18 years old because there will be some mature content. Just, you know, be warned. So that's the content warning for this one, but it's definitely very adult. And yeah, I liked it. I'm gonna hang on to it for a while. It's the type of book that I would lend out and not fret if it went missing, but I would hold on to it, type of thing. So I'm gonna hold on to it for now, but I could see myself eventually unloading it, you know? But I do recommend. The next book that I read was actually a library read, so I don't have a copy of it, but I'll put up a picture on the screen next to my head, and that's gonna be Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. And that for me was an absolute 5-star read. I know that it has kind of mixed reviews, it's kind of hovering in the 4-star zone, but for me, it was absolutely fantastic. So it takes place during the Spanish Inquisition when our protagonist Lucia is trying to hide the fact that she's both Jewish and a witch. So she's working for this sort of middle-class family with a social climbing wife. And when the wife discovers that her scullery maid can work magic, she tries to play it off as something that was divine, given by God, and is not in fact the witchcraft and the sorcery that it is. And what happens is Lucia, through the machinations of her boss, they start to circle in the more affluent society, and, you know, things happen. She has miracles to perform, and, you know, she meets this familiar who is in the service of her aunt's boyfriend. And things happen, and Lucia and the familiar, you know, start to have reason to be in each other's lives, which I don't want to say more than that because that's going to give away too much of the story for everybody. But I want to say that it was one of my favorite reads so far this year. And I would be surprised if it wouldn't be one of my favorite reads for all of 2025, although it's very early to tell. You know, right now I'm filming, it's May 1st, and I'm just doing my April reads now. It's May 1st right now, and I've already read 60 books this year, which I think is not too shabby. But in those 60 books, I think I have maybe like a dozen or less 5-star books in those, because I'm being extremely critical this year. But the Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, great cover, by the way. And no, I just loved it. I loved it. It did all the right things. It had action, it had plot points, it had, you know, a little bit of romance in it, but was not necessarily a romance. So in that way, it worked for me. It really worked for me. I had a great time with that one. The next library book that I read was The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this is an epic fantasy tale that spans over 3 books. I've only read the first one. My library has all 3. I put a hold on the second one, and then I got bogged down with everything on my TBR, so I ended up canceling that hold. But I can get it all through my library, so there's really no rush for me to read it. Again, it's the same kind of tale as Ordinary Monsters, where a complete story is told in the first installment, and then there's other books that come with it. But because it didn't leave me on a cliffhanger, I don't feel a sense of urgency to go and finish those books. So I think that what I'm saying now is probably more coherent than what I was saying before. But essentially, The Tiger and the Wolf did the same thing for me that Ordinary Monsters did. It told me a great story that I had a great... Sorry, my husband called, so I don't exactly remember where we are, but I think we were talking about Adrian Tchaikovsky's The Tiger and the Wolf. Generally speaking, Adrian Tchaikovsky is an author that really, really works for me. So I know that I'm going to get to the second and potentially third installment of the series, but I don't know exactly when I'm gonna get to it. So a couple of points that I want to make about this novel. First of all, it is a novel that has to do with human to animal shapeshifters. So if that's your thing, then you're probably really going to enjoy this one. Secondly, it's very exposition heavy. So a lot of telling, a lot of showing, not too much dialogue. There's a good amount of dialogue, but it's mostly exposition heavy. So lots of blocks of text. If that's something that you find difficult, then you should be warned that that's going to be very exposition heavy. It's got kind of like a predictable storyline, which I'm not upset about because honestly, I make so many wrong predictions when I'm trying to predict where a story is going. And these predictions that I made about this novel, I don't want to tell you if they were wrong or they were right, because if you watched a video of mine when I started reading this book a few videos ago, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And so I don't want to ruin it right now, but I was satisfied, let's just say, with my ability to predict certain things in this novel because it's really increased my confidence in myself as a reader. I hope that that makes sense to you guys, because I just don't want to say things that are going to give away the story for any of you guys that might want to be reading it. But yeah, I mean, this is taking place, it's a high fantasy, so it's taking place in a fictional world, and you have these different clans of people. Some are bear people, some are alligator people, some are wolf people, some are hyena people, and they just all coexist in this landscape, and you know, things happen. There's a girl who wants to run away from home, and we follow her basically on her adventure, which I really liked. I love Tchaikovsky. If you know me at all, you will know that he is a god tier writer for me. So yeah, I'm just really happy with that. Then I read an arc, a NetGalley arc by, I don't know how to say this name, so I have to consult my notes, by Egit Turhan? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's called Their Monstrous Hearts. I think I chose that one basically based on the cover. So this was a NetGalley audio arc, and it was really good. It was really good. It's giving gothic horror, it's giving mystery, suspense. You certainly have some supernatural. If you're into butterflies, you're gonna love it. Yeah, and we're following Ricardo, who has just inherited his aunt's estate in Milan, and he leaves, he's in New York, and he's like a struggling writer, and he decides that he's gonna just sort of like upend his life, move to Italy and take over his aunt's estate, and then he finds these journals that his aunt has written, and he starts to read them and become more acquainted with who she really was and how she came into so much money and like how she got this sort of aristocratic type of life and all these like really fancy friends and like where all of that came from. So the book itself is only about 320 pages, and I found that on audio it was playing for me a little long. So I think that if I had had a physical print copy of this book, I probably would have enjoyed it a little more. But yeah, maybe because sometimes when I'm listening to audio, I'm not fully paying attention, which isn't the book's fault necessarily. But still, I had a good time with this one. If you guys are looking for something with a horror vibe, this is gonna do it for you. On audio, I also finished listening to Le Vaisseau Magique by Robin Hobb, which is the French version of Ship of Magic. I listened to just the first part of Ship of Magic because in French, as you know, it's in part 1 and part 2. So I listened to the first part. I haven't started the second part yet, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I finished that one, and that was on Audible. After that, I read Starter Villain. Okay, so you guys probably will have no trouble believing that I bought this book based on the cover. And I have some feelings about this book. Now, I want to preface this by saying that it is my first and only John Scalzi that I have ever read. I know that he writes a whole bunch of different science fiction, possibly fantasy-esque books. This one I found in the sci-fi section, and it was an okay book for me. It had an okay storyline, a sort of an okay conclusion. The reason I'm so mid about it is because, and should probably not spoil a future video for you guys, but just to give you a little bit of a tease, I actually DNF'd a Terry Pratchett this week for the same reason. So, but I was gonna make either a separate video about that potentially, or we could talk about it in a reading vlog or in the May wrap up, but essentially, the reason that I'm kind of feeling mid about this book is because I feel like the author is spending too much time trying to work on clever puns that it kind of detracts from the story a little bit for me. And I find that kind of displacing when I'm trying to get into a story, but too much emphasis is paid to the prose and the jokes and the trying to get you to laugh as you're reading it, because then it makes me wonder if your story has any substance to begin with. So that might sound like pretty harsh criticism, but maybe this author just doesn't work for me. I know that Books with Emily Fox, Emily talks a lot about reading John Scalzi. She's read a few of his books. She does jive with the dad jokes. Most of his fan base probably does. But it's not that I didn't find them funny. I just wonder if I felt like there was a lot of energy being given to producing these jokes. And I'm not sure why they were necessary. Like or maybe just like humor doesn't really work for me unless it's written by a comedian. And like if Bill Cosby wrote a book or Dave Barry wrote a book or Mary Roach even, it's nonfiction stuff. So it makes me laugh, you know what I mean? But I don't know. It's just there was something about this book that didn't give me what I was hoping it would give me. So that being said, I don't know if John Scalzi is an author that I will pick up again. And I'm sorry to those of you who really like and really enjoy his work. It's not something that I feel was really working for me, although I'm very open to you guys changing my mind. If you want to discuss it down in the comments, if you guys know a lot more about John Scalzi and you know that this is maybe not one of his stronger works and you want to convince me to try something else before I condemn this author forever, let me know in the comments. I'm open to it, but for this one, it was just okay. It was not a DNF. I did finish it, but it was just okay. Edgar Cantero, This Body's Not Big Enough for Both of Us. I read this book. I don't even know how. I don't know how I read this book. Honestly, I don't know how I got through it. I have to consult my notes. Okay, so ultimately, this author is definitely not for me. There's too much craziness. There's too much lack of substance in what's going on. It kind of was giving the same thing as the John Scalzi book, trying too hard to create a fantastic, funny environment that you start to wonder if there's anything to hold on to. Like there's nothing solid and sturdy about it, nothing anchoring me to the story. And I think that Cantero is really preoccupied with trying to shock and entertain the reader rather than to give them something substantial to hold on to. It did have some interesting characters, but if I'm honest, I've already forgotten the ending. It kind of feels like somebody's tripping really bad and you can't escape whatever's going on. So for those of you who don't know what this book is about, it is about a brother and sister private detective team who basically get called onto a case after having left a mental hospital. They had to stay in a mental hospital and they left and they get called on this case and they have to solve a murder and keep gangs from fighting with each other. And it's just like, the book is chaotic. There's nothing to say more than it's absolutely chaotic and it's not for everybody. And I wish I had never read it. But the cover looked interesting and I felt that it was very promising when I picked it up off the bargain shelf at Indigo. And you know, you win some, you lose some. I would suggest that you guys, if you think you might even remotely be interested in this book, check it out. But I don't think that this author is for me. I am not the audience for this. Another book that I read this month, and this time that I really enjoyed, was The Deep Sky by Yumi Katase. And this was her debut novel. I think she has a third one coming out right now because I am following her on Instagram so I can be kept up to date with all of her goings on. This here is a deep space adventure about 80 women who leave planet Earth to go and colonize planet X. And they're on this spaceship and a murder happens on the spaceship. And our protagonist is called upon to figure out what exactly went wrong, why a bomb went off on the ship, why there was a murder, and yeah, it just kind of all happens in outer space. And the story is told in flashback sequences between the actual current present day when they are on the ship and they're on their way to Planet X, and in the years prior, the selection process, the schooling process, what got these 80 women onto the ship in the first place, how they each got there and for what reasons. So interesting premise. What I really liked about this book is the following. It had really light and accessible prose, very light sci-fi elements, so not too techy. If technology in sci-fi novels is something that turns you off, this is a book that's really going to make you feel nice and cozy in that element. So there does exist sci-fi out there that is really light on the tech issues. This is one of them, and I found it really, really accessible. If you guys remember my video where I read The Martian, there was so much tech. I found that book super alienating. And I think that's when Angela decided that she was going to follow me from now until the end of time, because she had never heard anyone bad talk The Martian. And it's not that I was bad talking The Martian. I just want you to know that. It's that the tech was so heavy. I just felt like I was the one on another planet. I was just not getting it. But this book, The Deep Sky, is like a nice warm hug. It's like when you fall into something and it cradles you, just like that. There's a lot of give. So I would highly recommend this book. I think I gave it 4 stars, but definitely one of my top reads so far this year. So this was also a book from my physical TBR. Not such a huge accomplishment. It is a small book, but still it did make me feel like I was winning and tackling that TBR. If you know, you know. This is a copy of Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. Now, T. Kingfisher, like Robin Hobb, like Adrian Tchaikovsky, is an author that I would read the entire backlist. I just love her work. There's nothing that she writes that I would not be interested in reading. That being said, I have not read all her work. So she's keeping me busy. She's keeping me busy. But I think that T. Kingfisher does a fairy tale retelling super duper well. This one here is kind of Sleeping Beauty-esque. The thorn hedge being the hedge that surrounds the castle that Sleeping Beauty is sleeping in. But again, it is T. Kingfisher. So you have this macabre horror gothic element to it with a little twist on magic and also kind of a romance. So I really, really would recommend this book if you are unfamiliar with T. Kingfisher's writing. If you want to try something small, it's clocking in at 116 pages. So very, very doable. Potentially, if you are not me, you could do it in one sitting. It took me a few days because I just had a crazy schedule this month, but I really, really like the creativity with which T. Kingfisher chooses to retell her fairy tales through the perspective, for example, of the fairy that is guarding the hedge of thorns. So that is something super creative in my book, and I don't know, I just think it made for like a really nice tale, and yeah, I just think everyone should read it. You should all read it. Go read this. Do you guys remember that trip that I took to restock my eBay store where my car got smashed? Do you guys remember that? So I was listening to the dramatized version of Elantris during that video, and I completed that as well. And that was really good. It was really good. There's nothing more to say. I completed parts 1 of 3. Well, actually, at the time of filming, I've completed the entire book, parts 1, 2, and 3 of the dramatized version of Elantris. There's not really much to say aside from that it's my first Brandon Sanderson. When I tried to read the physical print of this book back in 2013, I had a miserable time of it. And the dramatized version that Audible put out was really, really Zahava friendly. I was able to work and listen to the audio and still pay attention to the story. So that is the feat in and of itself. And I'm just really happy with the way that turned out. So saving you guys from having to listen to me repeat this in the May reads, even though we're May 1st today and I technically finished Elantris today, which is May 1st, I'm going to count it towards my April reads, which, you know, basically encompasses parts 1, 2, and 3 of the book. And I had a great time with it. You know, as I understand, Elantris was Brandon Sanderson's debut. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, much better experience this time around than whatever was happening in my brain in 2013 that made me give that book 1 star. So yeah, I liked it. I found it had a very satisfying ending. It almost kind of left me shaken a little bit because of things like, if you know, you know, but like the ending of Elantris kind of made me like, oh, you know, and you guys will know. If you've read it, you'll know why. And if you don't know why or you want to discuss it, I could discuss spoilers with you in the comments if you want, but I'm not going to do it in the video. So yeah, basically Elantris for me was good. Am I going to pick up Mistborn? Am I going to pick up anything else by Brandon Sanderson? I'm not going to run for it. I'm not going to run for it, but I'm comfy in a standalone novel for now. Another book that I completed in April was Worst Case Scenario by T.J. Newman. So that for me was a library read, which is why you're gonna have a picture of the book up next to my head again. And that one was non-stop, full throttle action sequence from the very first word. From the first sentence, from the first page, from the first word. This book had me flipping pages well into the night. It was so action-packed. So it kind of got me thinking, like mystery thriller, people often put it together, but this was more of like a suspense thriller, but it was also like an action thriller. I think it's more like an action thriller. So it's kind of hard for me to picture where in the library, I don't know where they would put that or classify that book as being, but I would say it's more of an action thriller novel, and you are just, your heart is pumping, like pumping the entire time. And you know, that's exactly how I felt. I immediately want to read all of TJ Newman's books. I have a copy of Falling already, and I have, I don't have a copy of Drowning. I can't remember if I have a copy of Drowning. I feel like I have copy. Oh yeah, I ended up buying a copy of Drowning when we went to that mobile book sale. Remember that? So I have her 2 other books. And yeah, I mean, it was just fantastic. I can't understand how the human brain can come up with such creative disasters, one after another, after another, after another, after another. Like, it's insane what Newman's brain is able to concoct. And I cannot speak of this book with higher praise. I just felt like I was screaming, I was yelling at the story, I was so mad about things that were happening. I think the most important thing that you guys need to know if you're considering reading Worst Case Scenario is that despite the very satisfying ending, the real hero of this novel is a 6-year-old girl. I had also borrowed a copy of Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris on Libby Audio. And that's a case where I just needed something to listen to while I was working, and frankly, the movie was better. So I don't really have much to say about that. It was just something that I knew the story of, could listen to really easily, but ultimately I like the movie better. Another audio that I listened to this month is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. Now that one, I may have a problem, people, because it is my 3rd read through Fingersmith. And that's another one where, like, I've read the book once, I've listened to it on audio twice, I've seen the BBC screen adaptation of that one at least 6 or 7 times. I own it, so I watch it whenever I need a comfort watch. So Fingersmith, basically, if you are new to the channel or haven't heard about it before, and I've talked about it before on the channel, so I'll try and keep this brief, but it is kind of like a long con. A girl gets recruited by a con artist friend of the family to work with him on a con, trying to swindle a rich girl into marrying him and giving away her fortune, at which point they're going to throw her in the madhouse. And it's basically the story of how this girl goes from like being a thief on the in the poor streets of London to working for this heiress and you know, helping her grifter friend kind of swindle this heiress out of her fortune. And that's the story that we're presented with when we first meet Sue, who is the protagonist of Fingersmith. So it is a twisty novel. It is a mystery kind of thriller with gothic elements and also sapphic elements, if you guys are into that, and just like a really good time. And if you guys are interested in skipping the book, not that I would condone that on a booktube channel, but if you do want to skip it and or see the BBC screen adaptation, please note it features Sally Hawkins and Charles Dance. So have fun with that, you guys, because it's one of my favorites. So I think that we're going to close off the video here, everyone, because I was going to talk to you maybe about some books that I had going on currently, but I think the video is probably long enough, and I will get to those books either later in the month in a vlog with you guys or at the end of the month when I do a wrap up. I want to thank you so much if you've come to hang out with me today. You know, let me know what you think. I'm prepared for your harsh criticism about my thoughts about John Scalzi and Edgar Cantero. You guys can feel free to talk to me about it in the comments if you want and talk me out of it, or, you know, do that thing where you change my mind. You know, just imagine me holding a sign up here and change my mind on the topic. I'm open to it, but I'm reluctant. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little reluctant. But maybe it's just a question of I didn't pick up the author's strongest work, and therefore I got maybe not the best impression. So I don't really know, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts on the matter. So yeah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for listening to me ramble about all of my April reads, and you can look forward to the same insane presentation at the end of May, or probably potentially also in June, when it's very likely going to be up for you all. And I will see you again in the next video. You guys are awesome. Kisses. Ciao for now.